morning, everybody. Wake up. I know it has been a long morning for you all. So I want your undivided attention. Of course, it is very difficult following your Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Conrad Sangma, how he's, you are lucky to be living in Meghalaya, to be honest with you, to have such a dynamic, visionary Chief Minister that he is. And of course, you are lucky to be in an institution of University of Science and Technology, where you have the leadership of Honorable Chancellor and his team, Mahbub al-Haq. This is amazing. I mean, when I was coming to the United States, from United States, what I thought was I should look up all the videos that are available on YouTube. And I was really, when he had this meeting with all of you, I think there were senior students, and the faculty was there, and he was standing there and he was addressing grievances of the students one-on-one. I have been to many institutions and I've never witnessed that one-to-one, hands-on handling the grievances of the students. So you truly are lucky. Trust me, this doesn't happen anywhere else. So give yourself a hand. It is an awesome gathering on this historic day. First, let me say Happy Durga Puja to you all. And really, it is your tenacity that you stuck around despite the onset of the Puja celebration. Well, that is an amazing feat. And thank you for all that. And also, to top it all, guess what? India won the match against West Indies. Another round of applause. So it is really a great honor and privilege to join each one of you who's sitting over there, the August gathering on this stage, off this stage, my fellow physicians, and my dear students who are dear to my heart. Of course, I'm truly honored and humbled to be present and join the festivities and I'm thankful to respectable Chancellor Mahbub al-Haq. So, I grew up in Aligarh, by the way. I don't know how many of you know in UP. So when we are growing up in that part of the world, we used to watch movies, right? You all guys watch the movies, right? And we always used to see this beautiful depiction of Kashmir Ki Kali, and all those movies. But we never saw anything from Northeast. And that was, I think, I realized it when I was flying from Delhi to Guwahati. And I suddenly saw that the whole landscape, and this was a bird's eye view, of UP and Bihar was kind of brownish fields, and there were some interspersed greenish area. All of a sudden, when we arrived in Assam, the whole scenery changed. Beautiful, all lush green. And we never imagined, living in Aligarh, we never imagined that there is a part of the world that we had to see. And I was really awed with the beauty of this part of the world. Unfortunately, this part of the world was ignored. And for so many years, this part of the world remained ignored by government, and we can talk about it at another time. But this is the fact. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was a season of light, it was a season of darkness. It was a spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. And we had nothing before us. We were all going directly to the heaven. We were all going directly the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present one. These were the words of Charles Dickens. Hundreds of years ago, what he predicted actually happened in our lives. Perhaps he was writing, foreseeing this in the present age of COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, we saw the best of humanity and the worst of humanity during this pandemic. We saw the heroic and selfless dedication of millions of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, health aides, and even low-paid workers. And how our colleagues and workers came together to fight this deadly disease with little regard to personal safety and well-being. And we all know how many of our dear colleagues that we have lost. At Aligarh Muslim University, Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, I think we lost like 29 or 30 professors and senior staff and not so senior staff. And they just died to this disease. We also saw the different governments coming together and doing, fighting this epidemic. And never before in our lifetime or even previous generation has this been observed. Probably, if you can come closest, is in the so-called Spanish flu of the 1915s, that this epidemic was of that nature. But the good news was, from China, we received the first notification of this disease on January 22nd, 2020. And we did not even imagine that we will have a vaccine. But within 10 months' time, we had 2 vaccines that were approved by the agency in USA, FDA. Within 10 months' time, we have 2 vaccines which are approved for emergency use. This has never been done in the past. The closest a vaccine has been developed, it took 4 years, and that was in the case of mumps vaccine in the 1960s. My job here is to talk to you about what is the burden of healthcare in this part of the world. Cardiovascular diseases is #1 cause of death and morbidity in this, even in India. Although our general understanding is probably infectious diseases are high. Yes, it is high, but cardiovascular diseases is probably #1. So what are the risk factors for these diseases? Diabetes is #1, high blood pressure, smoking, abnormal lipid profile, you have commonly heard about high cholesterol, family history of premature heart disease, genetic predisposition. South Asians unfortunately have a genetic predisposition to develop heart disease. And of course, our good habit or bad habit of eating rich food, which I'm also guilty of, eating like tea and mithai and all that is being, I think we should change that. The whole society has to change that. Instead of when you're celebrating bringing tea, you should bring in some bowl of fruit as a token of, appreciation. Of course, pollution can also have. There are certain areas that I really wanted to highlight. One is mental health. Mental health has not been recognized as an important health issue in the world. Of course, in the Western societies, people are recognizing it and considering it as a disease. But before that, there was no, and it is such a stigma. If you have a family member who has, God forbid, some, manic depressive psychosis or any major depression disorder, they will be immediately linked. Marriages will be broken in those families. They have family history of health disease. That we need to put a stop. Honestly, this has to come to a stop, and that we have to pay, as a society, we have to pay our attention. Infant mortality rate is considered as one of the indices of healthcare in a country. India, unfortunately, or fortunately, because it has improved significantly, is like in the top 40 of the infant mortality rates. Specifically, according to the Ministry of Health website in 2019, national infant mortality rate was 30 per 100,000. So 30 kids that are born die out of 108 lakh population before they reach the age of 1 year. That is sad. That is sad. Consider that. But there is a high variation in the country itself. For Assam, I was looking up, there are 40 people die, the infant mortality rate is 40. Whereas if you go down to Kerala, it is 6. And Sri Lanka is also 6. I don't know if there is any geographical reason or what, but certainly this is true wherever there is education in healthcare, the infant mortality rate goes down. And when I'm talking about education, I'm not talking about education in medical schools only. We're talking about at the ground level, at the village level, panchayat level, tehsil level, and in district level. And that there has been tremendous strides have been made. There have been, in the education, the antenatal care, the prenatal care, and women's health. There have been tremendous strides, and that is why we are seeing a success of decreasing infant mortality rate. But we need to work harder, and we have to continue working on reducing that. Of course, there are chronic diseases such as cancers, asthma, chronic obstructive lung disease, some of the common blindness caused by cataract. That's scourged for this part of the world, unfortunately. But we are seeing a lot of our colleagues, they are establishing camps, going there, doing voluntary work, and doing an en masse, treatment for this cataract surgery, which is so simple and it is so cost effective in improving the quality of life. Another factor that we really should not, and that goes to all of you who drive a motor vehicle. If you're driving a four-wheeler, please wear your seat belts. That saves tremendous amount of lives. So that education has to go out and people should do that. If you're driving a two-wheeler, do not forget to wear the helmet. I know it doesn't look cool, I know it gets hot, and it doesn't look good, but that is #1 cause of reducing mortality from motor vehicle accident. So please, if you have two-wheelers, do wear it all the time. I'll shift gear and talk a little bit about what technological advancement have been made during the last few decades. With your permission, sir, I'm taking a little more time, but I'll be completing very shortly. So we were talking about the Honorable Chief Minister mentioned about innovation and how we connect it to entrepreneurship. I think that's an amazing thing that he pointed out. I think it was a very truly inspirational and motivational speech that he gave. So there is a lot of areas that we can do research, and based here in University of Science and Technology. I was watching through one of the videos on YouTube, and I saw there are animal labs. You have rats, you have guinea pigs, you have rabbits, these are already existing. I think there's a golden opportunity to do animal work based here. Because in the West, there's a lot of problems with the shortage of animals to do these kind of work. And if it already exists, the pharmacology department, which is already, I understand, very active in doing research, can do drug-related research, or invite big pharma. They'll be happy to test the effect of the phase 1 development of their clinical trials. Other therapies that have come out, I will talk about only 2 things. One is how the technology has advanced really. I went to this conference in Boston, Massachusetts, which is on the east coast of the United States. The patient was sitting in Italy, The patient was in Italy, and I specialize in arrhythmias of the heart, which the rhythm problems that happen because of short circuit in the electrical system of the heart. This Italian electrophysiologist, he performed a procedure sitting there in Boston. Patient is in Italy. He was moving the catheters. The catheter was moving in the patient there. And he performed a successful ablation, 5,000 to 7,000 miles separated across the Atlantic. The only problem was when they first tried it, there was a delay of about 10 seconds or something during the transfer of the information. So they had to go to the banks, that they have these big cables and all that, so they could do the performance. The procedure was performed in a bank. That is one thing. Secondly, that boggles my mind is just recently Harvard did a research. They looked at human pacemaker cells. Human pacemaker cells have this tendency, in all our hearts, to emit electrical pulses that transforms into a mechanical action of the contraction of the heart muscles, right? So the electrical events followed by the mechanical event. The scientists in Harvard, they took these pacemaker cells and they created in petri artificial pacemaker cells outside the body. And then they made a small fish, a robotic fish, and they implanted those cells in those robotic fish. And trust me, when I saw the video, it was mind-boggling. It was moving, the fish was moving in water like this, from the intrinsic activity of the pacemaker cell that the God has given all of us. That is what we call as innovation in technology, sir. This is amazing. We are living in amazing time. Gene therapies, you can enter the genes, you can use RNAs, you can repair the genes, you can cut the genes and replace it with the good genes. So many of the inherited disorders of the body, they have been cured because of this technology. So ladies and gentlemen, we are living in an exciting time. We really are. And this should be for you folks, the students who are sitting here, you should think and think out of the box. I'm not saying fight with your, regular scheduled curriculum, but always start think and discuss and form, groups to discuss these findings. And finally, with the last speaker, he mentioned about reading books, reading things that are other than your specialty. Please do so. Reading opens your mind. Read biographies. Read biographies of politicians and scientists, and see what makes them big, what makes them a scientist, what makes them what they are. And finally, there is a book which is very dear to my heart, and it is called as The Art of Reading a Book. Trust me, I regret I didn't read this book 10 years ago or 20 years ago. This would have changed my whole concept of how to read and grasp knowledge from the books. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail. What I would say is, when I first heard about this project, I got excited. My dear friend Faisal, he introduced me to Mehboob Saab, and then we had many meetings on Skype. And I was amazed by his dedication. And you all saw the kind of animation that he had when he was talking and how passionate he is about this university. I have no doubt about it that this university will start this international PS Sangma. I was talking to one of my colleagues in America about Mehboob Saab, and I mentioned him, do you know him? He said, who doesn't know Sir Sayyid of the East? I don't know how many of you know Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan. He was a revolutionary educationist who was the founder of Aligarh Muslim University. So he truly is, I would say, is Sir Sayyid of the East. At the end, I'm going to recite a share of मजरू सुल्तानपुरी। मैं अकेला ही चला था जानबे मंजिल मगर, मैं अकेला ही चला था जानबे मंजिल मगर, लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया। And for Rhonda, because I don't think so she understands Urdu, I would translate loosely. Alone did I start my journey, and people kept joining me to form a caravan. And lastly, I will recite this. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. Here, especially in Meghalaya, see how dark and deep they are. But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Wase.